This is Brianna Spies, and I'm interviewing Jim Asplund about his involvement at Coyote Flats Pioneer Village, and he just wants to read a letter that he got from a child having to do with the school program.
That's correct. Okay, it says, Dear Mr. Asplund, you are the best storyteller I ever heard. I love the story about the kids who smoked. They went out to, just to explain that, they went out to the school barn and had a smoke, and the teacher caught them, and they had to write lines, okay? Did you ever have to write lines? Oh, so you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Okay. I love the story about the kids who smoked and lied, and they lied, they said they didn't smoke, and then she caught them the next day. So he had to write 200 lines. One was, I must not smoke. 100 were, I must not smoke, and the other 100 were, I must not tell a lie. And the story about Mary was hilarious. She said a swear word, and the teacher couldn't find out who it was. She could hear it, but so she lined the entire school up and gave us all the strap. And he says, yeah, he liked that story. You see, and the story about Mary was hilarious. What was scary was the strap, and the kids are fascinated by the strap. But I have to be kind of careful because, you know, little grade twos, we're careful about that. And the same with going in the jail. There are some kids who don't want to go in the jail, and we don't ever force the issue. And we never ridicule them or make them feel isolated. Okay, but the most funniest story was the clever kid who took 4 pens and only had to write 25 lines times for 100 lines. See, he had to write 100 times. So he positioned 4 pens like this and wrote, I must not. And so the kid got a real kick out of that, and you can see why. And they loved the stories about how the pioneer kids were mischievous, but I always emphasized how they had to work, how they had to do chores and that kind of thing. So, yeah. Okay, there we are.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with the school program?
I think we've covered it pretty well, you know.
So I know you've been involved with a number of buildings that are at Coyote Flats. Can you tell me about how you found them or
Sure.
them?
By the way, just going back to the school for just a sec, the volunteers who work there have been wonderful. They've been retired teachers, and they just do a super job. So thanks to them. Okay, yes, I'll start with the jail. Okay, my cousins live in the hills west of Bluffton, Alberta, and they built a pioneer village themselves from the ground up. And one of the buildings was a jail. And their jail had 2 cells. And when I went back to Coyote Flats, I said to the board, we need to get a jail, a Northwest Mounted Police jail. So my neighbor down the road here gave us a little old building, and with the help of the members, we converted the little building into a jail. And I wrote a letter to the RCMP in Ottawa and got permission to call it North NWMP Jail, Little Bow Outpost, because there was a Mountie stationed on the Little Bow River. And they found some horseshoes where he'd shoed the horses that they used. And so the Mounties wrote back, congratulated us on our wonderful project, and gave us permission. And the letter is hanging on the wall in the jail. And have you seen it? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Because NWMP is a protected title, and you can't use it without their permission. But they were very gracious about it, and it made it, it's a replica, of course, but they acknowledged that, and it made it authentic. And I told you earlier, the odd kid is afraid to go in the jail, but we also use it as a photo studio, and people love to go in the jail and get their picture taken. And one group had some of their wedding pictures in the jail. And I always like to joke that, well, who knows, that could have been a very appropriate place. Okay. And it is a very popular place. And the RCMP asked us at the time to please keep the kids from just acting silly in there and making, fun in there, which we try to do, but the kids can't help but having fun because they climb up on the bunks, because there's a double-decker bunks there, and of course they go in the cells. But we try. Okay, the jail, that's one of the things I got. Okay, and then
I think you said that you've helped with the Eaton House as well.
Yes, I did. Okay. When I was I've been living here for 40 years, but some people bought the land around me. It used to be my land, but I only kept the acreage. And I said to my mom, we should get to know these people. Because they're going to be our neighbors and be friends with them. So they came over, and I said, you live in the housing gate house, don't you? And they said, no, we don't. We're going to bulldoze it or get the fire department to burn it down. And we have a modular home that we live in. So my brain engaged, and that is perfect for a prairie tractor or Tidal Flats. And the people, it was Bernie Vanderwecken, who is Renita's brother. Okay. Bernie and Marilyn Vanderwecken were their names. And they wanted $20,000 for the house. But my friend Leonard Haney and I went over there one day, and Leonard said to them, the prairie tractor doesn't have a lot of money. Would you give us the house? And Bernie said, oh, all right, we'll give it to you. So we got it for free. And what a wonderful, wonderful gift. And the Alberta Transportation, that's the thing. And then we got it moved. And then it was, with all the grant money, volunteer work, $300,000 restoration project. And at all times, we were meticulous about making it authentic as possible. For example, we had to change the position of one of the doors. The dining room had been turned into a bedroom, so we changed it back as it was, with the help of the Housing Gate girls. And for example of restoration, if you see that board above the door there, the paint at that house had dripped behind the molding, so we made a color to use. And that's how we got the green that's in the dining room color. And we were very, very conscientious about authenticity and historical accuracy, but sometimes it was just too costly and time-consuming. So I'm sure you understand that we had to, we had to be realistic about it. But all in all, we felt it turned out really well. And now there's something that women love, as well as men, and a lot of guys like it too. The first thing that people can't say when they come in here is, oh, this is beautiful. The second thing they say is, I could live here. And the third thing they say once they get in, oh, my grandma had a stove just like that. Isn't that wonderful? And that's the whole purpose behind doing it. And a lot of the beautiful furniture, like the dining room, was given to us. Donated. The little piano, the record player. It goes on and on. And some of the furniture was custom made for the house by a gentleman named Ralph Oldenburger. And I don't name names, but he was wonderful. A local craftsman. And then, of course, the members were wonderful, Pete Brower and John. But you can name names if you like. Pete Brower was the guy who did the outside, and he was a perfectionist. He spared no effort to make it absolutely perfect. And he succeeded. Beautifully, beautifully done. And then I was in charge of the inside, and had lots of help. Yeah.
Where did you find the information to make everything as authentic as possible? How did you find out?
We used several sources. One was catalogs that had pictures of Eaton's catalog houses. And because it was built in the arts and crafts era, then I had arts and crafts magazines and books. Also talking to the housing gates and the Timmermans, of course, and Vanderweckens. So that would be like word of mouth that people who actually lived there or lived in it. And I lived in an Eaton's catalog house myself, so that headquarters, so that helped. So I would say a number of sources, all the way from printed material to actually talking to people. But I think you can understand that, for example, to put all the authentic woodwork, massive amounts of money and time, and we just didn't. We had to complete it in 2 years because of the grants. Because after 2 years, you have to report what you've done, and to be quite truthful, we could still be stripping the paint off wood and varnishing it and repainting it. It would be hugely time consuming.
What else have you had your hand in getting into Coyote Flats?
The Finnegan Ferry. Okay, what happened was I showed you I was writing Rivers We Love, Southern Alberta's Lifelines. And I said to the ferry operator, what a good idea. You have the old ferry on the bank and the new ferry going across the Red Deer River. We're going to get real historic sense of what happened. And then that's when she said, no, it is not a good idea. It's rotting and it's being vandalized. So we contacted the highway, Alberta Highways. They gave us the ferry and transported it there and set it on the footings, that which we had prepared.
How come you thought that Coyote Flats needed to have a ferry?
Because, and I realize it's not the exact site, there was a ferry across the Old Man River where the Nolan Bridge is. That's what I thought needed to have a ferry.
What would you say has been your favorite project that you've worked on?
Well, because of the school and because the kids are so delightful, I'd have to say the school. And right now it's the emphasis on the grade 2s because that's their program is Pioneers. And the grade 2s are absolutely wonderful. They're enthusiastic, they're appreciative, they're respectful. They're anything you could ask for in a kid. And the older the kids get, the more likely they are to be smart alecky and make inappropriate remarks and not behave. And the grade 2s are just wonderful. In one sense, it's an honor to be able to work with those little kids.
Are you still involved in the school program?
No, I'm not. You see, what happened then, I was 35 years in the classroom, 15 years with the school program there. That adds up to 50 years, and I was just plain tired. It wasn't that I had any bad feelings, I had only good feelings. And you know something, in a way that's a good time to leave it, and you still have good feelings.
Why do you feel that Coyote Flats is important?
Because it brings our pioneer past for the appreciation and learning of the public. And of course I have a spot in my heart for the kids and what. But everybody's so appreciative. And at the harvest show we have people come in and sign their names with the old pens. The adults love it. If they've used one of those pens, they're so proud. And they'll tell how they dipped the girl's braid in front of them in the ink and so on. They all have memories. And same with the strap. Oh, I got the strap, and they say it with some pride. Okay, and then they go into the Eaton's catalog called all this stuff. The people really, and we have definitely expanded it so that women can be interested. And a lot of guys have absolutely no interest in old tractors. I think the majority, especially young guys, they're not interested in those. So we really have reached through the school and those other things. We've reached a lot more people, and it's been a privilege.
Do you think anything could have been done better or differently?
No, I don't. I think there are little details that we could have been a little more meticulous about to be historically accurate. Well, like I told you about the Eaton's house. But there's absolutely no criticism about that. We always had good goals in mind, and yeah, I really do.
Were you ever involved on the board of directors with?
I wasn't, but I was the chairman of the grant writing committee. And as chairman of the grant committee, I have to say, I'm proud to say I got something like $300,000 in grant money. So, and gifts as well, like for example, the ferry and the Eaton's house. But it was, and lots of just plain cash from the different granting agencies. And I find it interesting, the STEP program, which would have financed you, has been discontinued. Also, the tree planting program, where the government sends out free trees for farmers and places like, has been discontinued because of financial. And isn't that sad? They seem to have money for a lot of really bad things and corruption and paying the senators to not show up for 30 years in a row. But they don't have money. It's one of the tragedies of our day, of our times. Because it's such a worthwhile place.
What do you think should be the focus for future plans at Coyote Flats?
That's a good question. I would say continue what they're doing with all their programs for the public. They make their facility available for such things as weddings, even funerals, family reunions. They have the school program is wonderful. They have lots of fantastic ideas, and it's working very well, and I'd like to see them continue. However, that having been said, I like to see them get a general store, because every little pioneer town had a general store, and usually the family lived in the store, and it's really part of our pioneer history. And also a hotel. Pretty well every town had a hotel with a beer parlor. They call them beer parlors. And they had separate doors for the men and women. And ladies were not allowed to go in there without a gentleman escort. Part of our pioneer history. I mean, maybe people don't approve all beer drinking. Why are you talking about beer parlors? But it's part of our history. And I can say that without prejudice because I'm not a drinker. So I can say that would be a good idea without being, well, I love my beer, and I think they should honor the beer. Beer drinker. Yeah.
Have you worked with anyone at Coyote Flats who's inspired you or really affected you?
Yes, I would say pretty much everybody I've worked with. And in particular the school program, the board supported me absolutely from day one, and they have ever since. And I was able to get grant money, quite a bit of grant money for example, to paint the school. But the board has always been there to follow up on seeing that it got done.
Are there things there that remind you of when you were growing up on the farm?
Absolutely. Pretty well everything's there. See, we had those kind of old tractors on the farm. And for example, they were called beat knives, okay? And you were talking earlier about chopping the beets. Have you seen those over there? Okay, this is what happened to my brother Alan. He severely cut his finger. And the hard man poulticed it with tobacco, and it made a perfect recovery. And he still has a scar. And one of my friends cut off the entire end of his finger. Those things were deadly. And so therefore, when I see one of those beat knives, it brings back not particularly good memories, but definitely valid memories. And I can remember when we had a threshing machine when I was the whole place is just, and I went to a one-room country school, a little church out in the country.
Besides the school, what would you say is your favorite building or artifact or aspect of Coyote Flats?
I would say the Eaton's house. But they're all, in a way, they're all my favorites in a different way. But my heart's kind of in those two. I think that's why. And a lot of the quilts, in fact, all the quilts in the Eaton's house were either handmade by my mother in the pioneer style, or there were ones that she owned, like the one on the four-poster bed was, she didn't make it, but it was her quilt that she gave to them. And you know the mural on the wall with Chicken Little? My sister painted that. So I would say that was one of the reasons why I picked that. It was family